was using it almost like as a weight on something. And this part of it was also covered up, the cover, and I'd forgotten it was there. So I found it the other day and I thought, okay, let's have a look through. And I Auguste Rodin, The Gates of Hell, 1900. Paris. A Promethean Humanism. In Paris, the Belle Epoque asserts itself dramatically at the World's Fair. The city is packed with crowds enthralled with the opulent art dominating Paris, its streets and the entrances to the newly constructed metro. The moment of triumph has finally come for the Impressionists, painters of happiness, who now attract to the City of Light countless other artists, such as young Picasso, seduced by the euphoric hedonism of the times. In the same year, Rodin displays a Promethean humanism on the panels of his Gates of Hell. Freud discovers in dreams a rebellion of repressed sexual instincts, and Nietzsche's death is a reminder of his declaration that man's greatness lies only in his will to power and in his capacity for invention. So let's have a look at a summary of 1900. The World's Fair on the Champ de Mars. Paul Cézanne finally recognised Paul Guimard, his strange metro entrances. Monet exhibits his garden. Monk, The Dance of Despair, and the Russians discover the Jugendstil. Art News, the painter of the American landscape dies. The transparencies of the McClurk building. Writings and theories, dreams according to Freud. So, in literature, let's see. The English writer Oscar Wilde dies in Paris. So this is a general view of the World's Fair. To the right, the Grand Palais; to the left, the Petit Palais. In the background is the Alexander III Bridge in Paris. The 20th century opens with a World's Fair, which lasts 200 days and attracts almost 50 million visitors to its 83,000 exhibits. Wow. Many visitors carry photographic cameras, a new social phenomenon. Wow, all that way back in 1900 people were taking selfies. So on the right hand side, Paul Cézanne is finally recognised. And in this picture, this is Cézanne's Apples and Oranges. It's in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. Among the Impressionists that are exhibited, thanks to Paul Gallimard and Roger Marx, at the Centennial, the most intriguing figure is Paul Cézanne, who occupies a place of honour with three of his works. Cézanne is now 61 and suffering from diabetes. Mary Cassatt exports Impressionism. The most Parisian of American painters is back. Since her return from the United States last March, Mary Cassatt of Pittsburgh has been dividing her time between her apartment on the Rue de Marignan and her castle in Beau-Fresne in her department. It seems at the age of 56, this friend of the Impressionists and an Impressionist herself has decided to build a bridge between American collectors and French painters. So this is one of her paintings. It's called Mother and Child. Monet exhibits his garden. There's a photograph of Claude Monet in his garden at Giverny. And this is Water Lilies, Monet's painting, 1900. Let's read it. 22 paintings with a barely identifiable theme, painted during the last 5 years, bursts of colour, burning light, reflection, transparency. The Claude Monet exhibit at the Durand Ruel Gallery from November 22nd to December the 15th includes his most daring work yet, the water lilies in the garden. When Monet settled in his house in Giverny in 1883, he had first seen it from the train running from Vernon to Gisors and was immediately captivated. It was merely a charming building with pink walls amid an apple orchard. He transformed the orchard into a valley of peonies, lilies and foxglove, 5 gardeners planted according to the season. In 1893, he bought a marshy lot on the other side of the railroad track and had a pond dug. Water-lily lilies soon bloomed, together with the arched Japanese bridge uniting the two shores. The aquatic plants, with broad, flat, floating leaves and showy flowers, are dazzling visitors to the Durand Ruel Gallery. Picasso takes the prize. So, this is a drawing by Picasso. The painter arrives in Paris 1900, just after he arrived in Paris for the centennial of the Grand Palais, where one of his canvases figures in the Spanish selection. Pablo Ruiz y Picasso, 19 years old, wins a comfortable contract, 150 francs a month, offered him by his compatriot, the art dealer Pedro Manache. Now he signs his work P.R. Picasso, opting for his mother guesses, it's up to you, is the talk of the town. Scientists are not lagging far behind the simplists, who, after reading Schopenhauer and his disciple Eduard von Hartmann, have had many dreams about the unconscious. Sigmund Freud, a 44-year-old Viennese neurologist and psychiatrist, is interpreting dreams, his key to unlocking the subconscious. In the Bible, the 11th and the favourite son of Jacob's 12 sons interprets dreams and is made governor of all the lands of Egypt by the Pharaoh. Is Freud taking his Hebrew progenitor as a model? In his controversial book, The Interpretation of Dreams, he declares that a dream has meaning in spite of apparent incoherence. It is in the image of the past. There are dreams that all people have, Freud says. They are wish fulfillments with a profound sexual impulse of infantile origin, often repressed by moral prohibitions. These wishes find an outlet in expressions of fantasy. Freud has abandoned the term psychology and coined the word psychoanalysis. While Gauguin affirms the necessity of establishing the right to dare to do all, and sculpts his house of pleasure, every architect, sculptor, and painter dreams of liberating life and stylizing it in Art Nouveau. They have all been won over to the movement by the Nabis, a group of artists who declare that nothing must escape their grasp. Apartment houses and stores, private homes and gardens, furniture, vases, dishes and glassware, everything will bear the modernising touch of the movement. Art becomes decorative, and in Picasso is deeply confused. Why? He does not understand. He was spending the winter in Madrid, where he heard of the death of the painter friend with whom he had moved to Paris. Carlos Casagemas had fallen in love with Germaine Gargallo, a woman of easy virtue who had been his model. She did not reciprocate his feelings. On Sunday, February the 17th, the dramatic climax came in to say, life may be an absurd game, but art is no luxury. It is a witness, a confession, the expression of the self. Benedetto Croce, the Italian philosopher, concurs. In his critique of the imitation of nature, he considers art to be the primary form of mental activity, purely intuitive, as a reaction against the naturalist positivism of his time. visualizes the mountain structure on a shimmering light. Sandra Bay brings Matisse back to Signac, whose divisionist technique he now applies to the Mediterranean composition of lux, calm et volupté. Montmartre is claimed by Picasso, who brings his gang of friends to the Bateau Lavoir. While Gérôme's burial in the cemetery on Montmartre is a requiem for academic Orientalist painting, the simultaneous deaths of Edouard Maybridge, the photographer, and Etienne Jules Marais, the physiologist, draw attention to chronophotography. This painting is by Pablo Picasso, Woman with a Crow, 1904. I love her long fingers. Picasso moves into the Bateau Lavoir. Only one waterfall sit for 30 studios, no gas, no electricity. Montmartre. A single water faucet, rusted and encrusted, for almost 30 students. 30 studios. No gas, no electricity. Facades of disjointed planks that drip water and let the winter wind whip through a creaking staircase. Permanent odours of cat dung and urine. This is where Pablo Picasso, 23 years old, settles on May the 6th, 1904, definitively, it seems, after 3 previous brief stays in Paris. How did the artist come to settle in an area frequented by scoundrels and beggars, poor people and prostitutes, so unsafe that he never goes out in the evening without a firearm? There is no doubt that the reputation of the Butte had something to do with it. It's been home to many painters, from Van Gogh to Toulouse-Lautrec. Picasso is renting the former studio of Paco Di Rio for 15 francs a month. Di Rio, a Basque, decided to isolate himself in a small hut in the area. The Bateau Lavoir, the washing boat, owes its name to the poet Max Jacob. He baptized it by analogy with the boats in which the washerwomen come to do their laundry along the rivers. These boats are misshapen and are unsteady like the building. It is also called the House of the Trapper because a Canadian trapper is said to have lived there. The strange building has been a resort of cursed artists since Maxime Morfra, friend of Paul Gauguin and a member of the Pont Aven School, lived there a few years ago. Cézanne at Mont Saint-Victoire. This is by Paul Cézanne. Mont Saint-Victoire. The end of Orientalism. Jean-Léon Gérôme, the most famous Orientalist painter, dies on January the 10th at the age of almost 80 while preparing to go to Monte Carlo with his friend a sensation at the third Salon d'Automne, where their gallery is named the Cage aux Fauves, the Cage of Wild Beasts, after the loud, violent colours of their canvases. Matisse, Derain, Manguin, Rouault, Valdat rival each other to be the most daring in the exhibition. As for De Brooke, the four German students who founded this movement hoped to launch a revolt against refinement and rationalism in favour of the authentic expression of their strongest creative impulses. And this painting is by Henri Matisse, Woman with a Hat, 1905. I really like that, I love the colours. The posthumous fame of Van Gogh, Amsterdam. This is self-portrait, 1887. 473 works by Vincent van Gogh, including 74 canvases, are presented